What's up, marketers? In today's video, I'm going to give you my 5 tips to scaling your Facebook ads in 2022. Be sure to stay around to number 5 because this is the biggest suggestion and tip that I have for brands that want to scale really rapidly this year. Number 1 is increasing your creative production along with your scaling budgets. One of the most common mistakes I see a lot of brands making is they start scaling their budgets, but they're also not scaling up the quantity of creative content that they're testing and the variety of creative content that they're testing. Think about it. When you have lower budgets, Facebook is literally getting the low-hanging fruit of people that want to buy from your brand. That's just a fact. So when you start actually scaling up your Facebook ads, you're going to have to start having multiple messages and multiple images and multiple strategies so that you can start reaching a wider variety of people. That's why creative strategy is so important for brands that want to scale, because you actually have to think more about scalable content. So think about it. You actually have to create content that's going to be appealing to a broader audience. So instead of creating content just for teachers, just for doctors, just for moms, what you're gonna have to think about is what is the broadest value prop that your product holds, and really try to optimize for that specific message. This is also why I test my creatives on broad audience for scaling brands, because I ultimately want to make sure that the creative strategies that I'm testing and scaling on into the core prospecting campaigns are the most scalable content because they're being tested on that broad audience. Number 2 is to keep your structure simple to avoid wasted spend. A simple structure is going to allow you to identify what is working a lot more clearly. So therefore, you're going to be able to identify what to scale and what not to scale. Frankly, too many campaigns and too many ad sets is not going to be a good foundation for scaling. And you're going to be spreading the algorithm too thin so that you're not actually going to be gaining learnings on those ad sets and those campaigns. Simply put, playing with small scale ad set budgets is going to constantly keep your ad sets in learning, which means that it's not fully optimized to scale. And this ties back a little bit into the first part about scaling up your creative strategy and scaling up your creative production and trying to develop creative that actually appeals to a broader audience. One of the most common things that I see when working with Facebook ad accounts that are starting to scale is they start finding more wins and broader audiences, and they're scaling up those broader audiences, and tinkering around with the interests and the lookalikes becomes a lot less of their day-to-day when managing the ad account. Now, if you're interested in learning about what type of structures I use on my Facebook ad accounts, I actually have an entire playlist that shows a wide variety of budgets and scenarios. And really, these are exactly what I do with my clients, and this is exactly what I would be doing with you guys if I was managing your Facebook ads account. So be sure to take a look at those videos. Number 3 is going to seem super obvious, but when you see something working, increase your budgets. And I would suggest that in the beginning, if you are new to Facebook ads or your brand is new to Facebook ads, I would not throttle that budget too much. I would go ahead and increase by 20%. And what Facebook actually says is that it's not going to throw your campaigns and your ad sets into learning if you increase or decrease by this amount. But if you go out beyond that, you're likely to throw your campaigns back into learning. So if you're a newer brand again and you have those smaller budgets, I would take a slower approach while again making sure that you are scaling up your creative production and you're testing a wide variety of ad creatives as you're starting to scale up. And this goes the same for when you see something not working. Go ahead and turn that off, but don't turn it off too quickly. I like to let my ad sets that are testing creatives run at least 1 week. Now, the budget of those is going to depend a lot on the cost of your product, your current CPA. But a really decent rule of thumb is that if you see something spending and it's spent about 3 times your normal CPA in Facebook and it hasn't had a purchase yet, then that's when I would go ahead and turn it off. Number 4 is another interesting one, but you have to have goals and targets for not only your CPA, so your cost per purchase, but also for your budget. I think one of the hardest things that you can do as a business owner or as someone directing a media buyer is to just tell them, scale up as long as results are good. There's a few reasons why this is a problem statement. Number 1, it doesn't actually show really where you want to grow or how much your business could grow. I've actually been in this situation before where we scaled up really rapidly and we got amazing results, but then the company couldn't actually fulfill on the promise of the product and they had to shut down ads and production of their product for several months, which actually put their business way far behind. What that business should have done is they should have told me and my team, hey, we have the current production capacity to 3x our ad spend with this certain amount of CPA. And that's something that we could have more easily optimized for. I often find too that you're more likely to actually reach your scaling goals if you create a budget for scaling instead of just saying, oh, if I get a 2 ROAS, then I'm gonna scale to the moon, or I'm gonna scale as much as I can. Instead, if you say, hey, you know what? I'm at 10K of ad spend per month right now. I wanna make it to 50K by the end of the year. That's actually a much more logical plan because you're going to be able to figure out what type of creative production you're gonna need to actually support that type of scale, and you're gonna be able to make a scaling plan based on that number. I just so often see when brands say, scale as long as results are good, and they don't actually scale because they're too busy playing the optimization game at that low level. And my number one tip for brands that want to scale rapidly, I think many of you are not gonna like this, or it's gonna make a lot of you uncomfortable, but that is to scale and then optimize for that ad spend. And really what this looks like is it's in some cases 2xing, 3xing, even 4xing your overall budget, and then optimizing from that point to get that CPA. Now, I've worked with several brands that had really aggressive scale goals, and our suggestion to them was actually, instead of going piece by piece, scale, optimize, sometimes bringing down the budgets when results weren't quite there, we just recommended to scale overnight. And there's some interesting things that I've seen that tend to happen often. Number one, the Facebook algorithm actually does tend to reward people who spend more. And even though you're not increasing by that 20% mark, like I suggested earlier, and really, again, that's for people who are spending less, really just getting started, not super comfortable with the platform. But if you have a team of media buyers, or you yourself are a media buyer, or you've been doing the Facebook ad things for a while, and you have the production capacity behind you to support that scale, I highly recommend just 2xing, even 3xing your overall spend and optimizing from there to actually get your results. It could be pretty painful in the initial days, but as long as you've had some of the results in the past to back something like that up, and you have a good creative production strategy, and you know whatever types of creatives are going to make it, that is something that I've actually seen work way better than doing this piecemeal scale day by day or week by week. And that's it. I'm really curious about what you guys think about this video, so be sure to leave me a comment below. And be sure also to take a look at Savannah and I's new podcast called the Purchase Optimized Podcast. We're gonna be dropping episodes every single Wednesday on our YouTube channel and on a podcast app near you. And I will see you next week. Thanks, guys. Bye.